Trump can get away with lying when it's an issue that involves, for example, his connections with Russia, because it's the Democrats that brought that up. He can get away with his lying about how he tried to blackmail Ukraine in 2019 against Russian aggression by cutting off their military aid, because it's the Democrat and his enemies that whipped that up. He can get away with lying about the Trump Organization because it's the courts that are after him. It's his own people. It's some Republican legislators. It's some of his MAGA faithful who want this to come out. So you can lie about the other side, but you can't lie to your own.
Hello, I'm Anna Smith and welcome to the Trump Report on Times Radio. Joining me today is Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics at the Clinton Institute, University of Dublin. Scott, the Epstein Files, the problem just doesn't seem to be going away for Donald Trump. We've obviously got his state visit to the UK in just 2 days' time. The sacking of Britain's ambassador to the US just a week before, it's not just potentially inconvenient now. It feels like it could end up dominating the joint press conference that they're going to have at the end of this visit. What do you think we can expect to see this week?
Well, predicting what you see from any Donald Trump event, let alone a state visit to the UK, is a fool's game. Because there's no telling what's going to happen in the traveling circus. The problem for the ringmaster here is, to mix our metaphors a bit, is that he can't keep the zombies down. Every time he thinks he has the show on the road, the Epstein Files pop up again. They can't be buried. And they won't be buried. Before we get into the specifics, they won't be buried, because when you base your rise to power on misinformation and disinformation, when you build up your so-called base by feeding them that misinformation and disinformation, hoping it will beset your enemies, don't be surprised when your base says, show us the goods. And the fundamental here is that whether it's because Donald Trump knows he's implicated in Epstein Files, whether he's worried he might be implicated, whether he's worried his friends are implicated, he will not allow the full release of them. So what's the latest episode? The Epstein story had receded for a few weeks in the summer, but then two things happened last week. The first is that the birthday book comes out. And so we have confirmation of this massive volume for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, which has tributes to him and dirty poems and body pictures to him from many, many people, but one of them is Donald Trump. The drawing comes out of the naked woman with the lewd, crude poem, with the signature in a particular place to signify a particular part of the woman's anatomy, exactly like the Wall Street Journal said it was a few weeks ago, because guess what? The Journal had gotten a copy of that drawing, and now Trump, who says, I'm going to sue them for $10 billion, they will pay. And now he's caught out, and of course they said, oh, it's a hoax. It's not his signature, blah, 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 blah. But most people, including supporters, don't buy that. Then the second thing that happens is that you're going to get leaks of information that are in the Epstein Files, and the UK ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson, is caught up in this because it becomes known there are many, many emails between him and Epstein. I suspect a tabloid had gotten a hold of them or was about to get a hold of them. So Mandelson said, here they are. And of course, that confirms not only did he have the correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein, but significantly that when Epstein was under suspicion, when he was facing possible criminal charges, going back many years, Mandelson said, let's see what we can do to help you get out of this. He offered him that assistance. So he's compromised now as, His Majesty's ambassador to the United States. He has to technically be fired. He knew he was going to go. Causes problems for the Starmer government, but it's going to cause problems for Donald Trump because he's rolling up in the UK this week. And Peter Mandelson, I guess, will be far, far away, in a corner of the UK. And Starmer's going to be hosting the Donald with a press pack that will want to talk more about Epstein. They will want to talk about it. So how does the circus deal with that? I'm not sure even King Charles can get him out of this one.
In terms of that, what do you expect him to do? Obviously, he is going to get asked about it.
He'll lie. I'm going to tell you that. I'm not sure an analyst is supposed to say that so blatantly, but he'll lie about it. Nothing to see here. I was friends with the guy, but I wasn't friends with the guy since 2004 and not because Trump knew what he was doing, but because they fell out over a property deal. I got rid of him. He couldn't come into my club. Nothing to see here. Fake drawing, fake signature, yada, 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 yada. Yeah, and he'll hope that the press will headline it and put it out there. That story don't play. Trump can get away with lying when it's an issue that involves, for example, his connections with Russia, because it's the Democrats that brought that up. He can get away with his lying about how he tried to blackmail Ukraine in 2019 against Russian aggression by cutting off their military aid, because it's the Democrat and his enemies that whipped that up. He can get away with lying about the Trump Organization because it's the courts that are after him. It's his own people. It's some Republican legislators. It's some of his MAGA faithful who want this to come out. So you can lie about the other side, but you can't lie to your own. So the hope here is for Trump is keep the news cycle on something else, keep it on something else. And what got him partially off the hook last week was Charlie Kirk's murder, because this was just starting to heat up regarding the story of Mandelson's resignation, and then the dramatic story of Kirk's assassination, and then the Trump camp's exploitation of that, which is an even bigger story in some ways. That overtakes news cycle for a while. We'll see how long that is the case.
He's in this no man's land, isn't he, really, when it comes to the Epstein Files? That, distraction is only one thing. What can he hope to eventually get rid of this altogether?
You just limit the damage. You just limit this. And so the first point of call is to try to stave off the House Republicans from forcing a vote to demand the disclosure of the files. And that's where we've been for weeks, to be honest with you. We know that, it will only take 4 Republicans now, because there's a couple of by-elections the Democrats are expected to win. So it'll only take 4 Republicans to come out and defy the Trump people, to defy the House Speaker Mike Johnson, to say, no, we want this vote. How long can the Trump people keep that from going? Because once you have that vote, this is going to go up the news cycle. Then I just think it's a question of keep on causing chaos, and to be honest with you, the ultimate story that will overtake everything will be the U.S. economy, which is not nearly as dramatic as the Epstein Files. It's not nearly as dramatic as the exploitation of Charlie Kirk's killing, but it's the fundamental that affects people's daily lives. So that's probably going to come into play towards the end of this year. That's not good news for Trump either, because they're not doing well on the economy, but it could take the sting away from Epstein if people are more focused on that.
In terms of the state visit that we're seeing this week, obviously from the UK's point of view, it was kind of organised as a bit of a strategic necessity in terms of getting the US president, to distance himself a little bit from this Russian influence. How much do you think that will play a part in this week's conversations?
Oh, if Trump's trying to limit his damage over Epstein, the UK government's trying to limit the damage on all other fronts, right? And I'm not talking here about the far right's spectacle of its own. I was about to say a rude word that my father would get on me for. So, hey, it's not that far right's display with the fake, outrage over migration and the fake outrage that supposedly the Starmer government is betraying Britain. I mean, that's all just simply, unfortunately, headline grabbing rubbish. It is that Trump's already caused damage to the UK. First and foremost, he's damaged U.S. consumers, U.S. manufacturers, U.S. importers with the tariffs, but they have hit the Ukraine. Now, the framework, it's not yet a deal, but the framework so far has limited the damage to the UK because you keep the tariff rates down to 10%. You're going to want to make sure that's still the case. You don't want trade getting upset and say 15, 20, 25%. They're also going to hope there'll be there's always deals that are signed. These are like memorandum of understanding. And this might be U.S. investment in Britain. This might be technology deals. The Starmer government want to play that up as well. So they're going to try to limit damage on the economic front. They're going to try to limit the damage over foreign affairs. In particular, the UK, Europe, Ukraine have got these negotiations with the adults in the room, with proper Trump officials military intelligence, State Department people, at least those that haven't been fired. And that's over sanctions on Russia. That's over what the security guarantees to Ukraine would be like after the Russian invasion's halted. It's what security guarantees to countries like Poland are going to be now after what Russia pulled last week with the drone incursion into Poland. Those are really serious conversations. UK wants to protect that. Don't let Trump, who spins like a weather vane, get distracted by Vlad and pull on that. So you've got that coming on. And then, to be honest with you, what they want to do is they want to keep some distance between Trump and the far right here. I've said this before with your great colleagues, but I'll repeat it here. J.D. Vance was here a few weeks ago scheming with figures on the hard right as they try to get into government. And that includes Nigel Farage. And those discussions are very much on what can we whip up. This false claim over free speech, which in fact means giving us cover if we want to put out hate speech. Let's call it what it is. This idea that Britain is swamped by migrants, blah, 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 blah. Well, Vance, Steve Bannon, Trump's former chief strategist, they're all in with Reform Party. And you saw that with Elon Musk's video message, at a Tommy Robinson-led rally over the weekend. Now, how do Starmer and co react to that far-right rally? That's one question we could take up others. But while we think about that, what you want to do is you want to keep Trump from supporting that far-right, hard right while he's over here. Because I'll repeat it, and I'm out there. There are two national TV networks in the UK, I won't name them specifically because I'm a nice guy, who are Reform Party outlets. And you don't want Reform Party outlets trying to spin the Trump visit into this is a victory for Nigel Farage, whether or not, by the way, stinger question for another interview, whether or not Nigel Farage reverses on whether I'm supporting Tommy Robinson, which will be something to watch.
Scott, as ever, we could talk to you for absolutely hours, but thank you so much for joining me today. We will be talking to you again soon, I've no doubt, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.